The Atlanta Falcons make a major mistake selecting Michael Penix Jr. in the top 10 of the NFL draft. We're recapping round one on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, a crazy round one in the NFL draft. We're going to talk about a massive failure for the Atlanta Falcons, the big winners and big losers of round one as well. Before we get into it, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. Remember, NFL content all year round on all platforms, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's draft recap is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I am Tyler Rowland, host of the Locked On Titans podcast, here with my co-host for the day, David Harrison, local expert and host of Locked On Commanders. Fireworks, David. We saw some record-breaking activity. 14 offensive players to start the draft. That's a record by double. 7 was the previous record. 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, the most we've seen since the historic 1983 quarterback draft. But the big one that stands out here is Michael Penix Jr. going to the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. Of course, we have Caleb Williams to Chicago at 1, Jaden Daniels to Washington at 2, which we'll get more thoughts from you on, obviously, as someone covers the team. Drake May to New England at 3, Penix to Atlanta, McCarthy to Minnesota at 10, and then Bo Nix to the Broncos at 12. Heavy quarterback draft, but like I said, I'm coming out strong here. I think this is a massive failure for the Atlanta Falcons. Number one, you just gave Kirk Cousins $180 million with a ton of that guaranteed. Looking at your owner, Arthur Blank, who is all in to win immediately, and telling him that he just spent that much cash on Kirk Cousins to use your top 10 pick on another quarterback. Not only is it difficult for me to explain, based on the video we're seeing of the Falcons draft room, it was difficult for Terry Fontenot, the general manager of the Falcons, to explain. Kirk Cousins was blindsided by this. He didn't know until right before the pick happened. Doesn't sound like him or his agent is very happy with that. Michael Penix Jr. is going to be 24 years old in May. He's already an older prospect. Tons of injury history. He may be a great player, but this is clearly a mistake by the Atlanta Falcons to maybe not move back or whatever they could have done here. Do you agree with me there? Is that how you see this shaking out, or you maybe a little higher on it than I am?
No, I'm not. And here's the thing about it, though, like, because a lot of this is going to come across as like Michael Penix Jr. hate, and that's not at all what this is. This is contextual in every level, right? And there really are at least 3 layers. Just off the top of my head, there's 3 layers to why this is a massive failure for the Atlanta Falcons. One, like you mentioned, you're taking a 24-year-old rookie, and basically your plan is to let him sit and get older before he ever even touches the field, and that's just not a smart idea in the National Football League. So that's failure number 1. Failure number 2 is you just signed that 6-figure or 9-figure free agent veteran quarterback, and the very first draft pick you spend to support him coming to your team when the man had options is to draft his future replacement. Like that, you're basically selling the experience before you even get there. So that's failure number 2. And then failure number 3, you just mentioned not trading back. I mean, what's the threat here? The Chicago Bears are not taking Michael Penix Jr. The Minnesota Vikings were in on J.J. McCarthy early on. The Jets aren't going there because they don't want to make their veteran, older quarterback mad. So they're going to go a different direction. The Denver Broncos, I mean, I know people in the NFL who have literally been talking about how Sean Payton and Bo Nix was a thing for a while now. Like, they're not going to go Michael Penix Jr. You can literally trade back and were there no phone calls? I would find it very hard to believe that there were no phone calls for a top 10 pick. The Atlanta Falcons absolutely, in my opinion, most likely had the opportunity to trade back, net some draft picks, and you still probably get Michael Penix Jr. And look, if you get Michael Penix Jr. at, 13, 14, whatever it might have been, you're still going to get criticized for the pick because you still have a veteran quarterback, Kirk Cousins, you just paid a lot of money to, that you just bypassed getting a weapon for. But at least you can come back and save face and say, well, we got all these other picks, It's a really good receiver class. It's a really good tackle class. You know what I mean? Whatever you got to spin it to say we have these other picks. I don't know, get the Vikings to give you both of their first round picks this year, give them a little bit back to make the points work and all that stuff. And then you can go get yourself a late round receiver, like, I don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs did for their superstar quarterback. So, I mean, it's again, from at least three different layers, nothing against Michael Penix Jr. It's an absolute terrible decision in April of 2024. Now, look, April of 2027, we could be singing a different tune depending on how this whole thing works out. But if you're Terry Fontenot, you have basically just hitched your wagon and your future reputation on this move has to work in the next 3 to 4 years, or you are just a clown. You're a clown now, and you're going to be a clown then.
Yeah, and it's going to get him fired, at the end of the day. Like, it's a move that could potentially get him fired. It just doesn't make any sense to make a win-now move like paying Kirk Cousins and then to not surround him with more help to go all in. Let's just call it what it is. Arthur Blank is an older owner, and at some point, he wants to see his team have another opportunity to go. And to sell this to him that, hey, I'm going to make a pick in the top 10 after you just paid Cousins all that money, and I'm not going to, think about the now. I'm going to think of the future. It just does not. Rome Odunze is on the board. Take an offensive lineman to keep him, even if they have a good offensive line. But even so, take an offensive lineman if they're that good of prospects. You have your pick of any defensive player. There's no way that they couldn't have done some sort of trade down. And here's the big thing for me. J.J. McCarthy was still on the board. And I'm not telling you to take J.J. McCarthy. I'm not saying that that's the right move there, but clearly quarterbacks were not going as high, and the demand for the quarterbacks was not as crazy as was being sold before the draft. Like, there's just no way that they couldn't have moved back a little bit and still had the opportunity to draft Penix, because Penix wasn't going to get taken over J.J. McCarthy if you just sat and went back a little bit, because clearly Minnesota wanted McCarthy more than Penix. You know what I mean? It just makes sense stylistically and schematically with what they do. So I just think it's absolutely crazy to pass on Rome Odunze or an O lineman or a defensive player to make this move. The big thing, like we started it, the big thing that stands out to me is this failure for the Falcons. But we don't want to, be too negative here. There are some winners to get into, and there are some quarterbacks who went to some places that do make sense. And David, obviously, as someone who covers the Commanders, is going to be able to tell us about that. So we're going to talk big winners here in the first round of the NFL draft. And, of course, get to our big losers as well. Before we do that, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, they might not have the time or the resources to hire. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef-designed recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, Black and Mahi, comes with a full page of easy-to-read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process, so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals, free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
All right, David, we're going to continue this recap of day one of the 2024 NFL Draft. Thank you guys for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. Before we get into our big winners from day one, I want to ask you, are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting and debate shows? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's free, 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. It's Locked On Sports Today, bringing you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. David, who's your big winner that stands out from the first round of the NFL Draft right now?
You know what? I'm going to go all the way to pick number 32, and I'm going to go to not the Carolina Panthers, because I still have a hard time calling the Carolina Panthers a winner of anything until they actually start winning games. But I am going to call quarterback Bryce Young a winner here, because unlike the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers are at least making an attempt to go out here and give their young quarterback something that he was desperately lacking in his rookie season. That's a little bit of help. They go get Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, a little bit of a taller dude, not like a towering guy by any means, but at least a little bit of a taller dude, 6'1" plus, you know what I mean? So at least if you're Bryce Young and you're under duress this year, you got a guy that maybe you can just throw it up to and see if he can't go at least make a defensive play and deflect it for you. And, you know, again, it's not the number one receiver in the draft class. It's not a surefire Pro Bowl or Hall of Fame projection that some of these guys have. But if you're Bryce Young sitting at home, and if you're watching the NFL draft, which I gotta be honest with you, Tyler, like if I was in the NFL, I don't know that I'd be watching the NFL draft. I think I'd just kind of go do other things and whatever. But if you're Bryce Young and you're watching the NFL draft, or at least if you get a text message from your agent or somebody else that says, hey, Carolina just made a move, traded back into the first round, got you a receiver, you got to feel good when you're going to bed tonight saying, you know what, at least my squad, you know what I mean? Even if we're not necessarily looking all that great on paper, at least I know my squad is out there trying to get me a little bit of help this offseason.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, you add him to Jonathan Mingo. They still have Adam Thielen. They add Deontay Johnson. Like, they're at least giving him a chance. Now, that offensive line will be a work in progress, obviously. They made two big additions at guard in free agency, paid a lot of money for those guards. So, yeah, you hit the offensive line heavy in free agency. You get to the draft here and add another weapon. And for what they paid, you know, I'm going to echo that sentiment and say for what they paid, I believe that, you know, they gave pick number 33 and pick 141 and got back 200 and, you know, moved up to 32. I think that's one of the big things that stands out to me is the low prices that were paid for some of these trades, like the Jacksonville trade. Jacksonville got nothing in this year's draft to move back, and I was a little surprised by that. But my big winner is the person who made the trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. And David, our everydayers here on the Locked On NFL podcast, they'll know that I've been criticizing Minnesota Vikings this entire offseason with the moves that they've made. I got to give them credit. I have said trading up into the top 5 for J.J. McCarthy would be a massive mistake. They did end up trading up, but only one spot, and they barely gave up anything to make that move. So to not only not have to trade into the top 5, to keep number 23 when you didn't have any picks in the top 100 after 11 and 23, to get the quarterback that you wanted to get all along, and with the Falcons taking Michael Penix at 8, for the Vikings to just sit there, be patient, only move up one spot to 10, and get the guy who should have been quarterback 4 off the board. I just think that that's a great turnout for them. And then you pair that with, again, not paying a ton of capital. They had to give up a future 4th and 5th next year, but like, they didn't give up any top 100 picks to move up. So, like, to move up from 23 all the way to 17 and to get Dallas Turner, who a lot of people considered the best edge rusher, you bring in Jonathan Grenard in free agency to replace Danielle Hunter. Now you add that to Dallas Turner, a twitchy, explosive, physical player who could still grow and could still be a better player ultimately. Like, I just really love what Minnesota was able to do in this first round. Is there another winner that you have in the first round?
I mean, I want to echo that real quick too, because I mean, you're basically, you know, this is a copycat league, right? And everybody sees what the Houston Texans did in a very winnable division last year. And Tyler, I know that's near and dear to your heart with the Tennessee Titans and in your wheelhouse. But, they go get a quarterback, they go get an edge rusher in the first round of the NFL draft, and it helps, turn their whole thing around. And that doesn't mean that's the key to turning your entire team around every single year. But the Vikings go out, they get themselves a quarterback, they get themselves an edge rusher. I actually do want to applaud. I don't know if I would call them winners per se because it's a pretty simple pick to make, but I do want to applaud the Indianapolis Colts for not being afraid, right? Latu coming out of UCLA, once a medically retired player. A lot of people talking about the injury concerns and, is it going to be a long-term thing? Is it going to shorten his career? All this stuff. But really, when you talk to people, everybody pretty much agreed. Latu was the number one edge guy in talent. Turner was the number two edge guy in talent. The question was, would people be scared off by the injury history of the Indianapolis Colts? And you know what? We're going to spend our draft capital on the best dude. We're not going to worry about things we can't control. We're not going to worry about the what ifs. We're going to go out there and do what we know is best, and they go out there and get Latu. So I'm happy for the kid that, he's being respected. His game is being respected. He put it on tape. That's what we tell all these guys, right? Go put it on tape. You look at Quinyon Mitchell. Put the good stuff on tape. You're going to get found. Latu did that. The Indianapolis Colts rewarded him by making the smart decision here. Whether it works out, injury-wise, that's, again, something that we can't necessarily control. So I do want to applaud the Indianapolis Colts for doing that. I also think, Tyler, my second winner of this whole thing is going to be the New Orleans Saints. So I'll make this a little bit quicker. We've been talking with Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints host here on the network, and during the Locked On NFL mock draft, he had to trade up to go get one of those top three tackles, where here in this actual NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints got to sit back and wait for one of those top three tackles just to fall into their lap. And I think that is a big get for the New Orleans Saints, who don't have the greatest draft history in the world, certainly can't afford to be giving up draft capital trying to move up. So the fact that they were able to sit back and do that and get one of those top tackles in the draft is a big win for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, and you think about Ryan Ramczyk and the injury concern right now. People are wondering if he'll ever play again. Trevor Penning has not worked out after being a first-round pick in 2022. And then James Hurst retired before the draft. So they definitely needed to get lucky there, and they certainly did. I will say for the Colts, Latu just is such a polished pass rusher. He's going to be able to help right away. And, a lot of guys have the athleticism and the size and all that, but having the polish in your pass rush game and your hand usage, that's, it's worth it to take it. As much as it pains me to give Chris Ballard and the Colts some credit there, I definitely understand. I do want to mention another winner, though, for me, a couple that I'll just rapid fire. The Cardinals, I know they could have got cute and traded out and blah, 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 blah. Sticking and picking Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, was always the right decision. And also, you got to give credit to Howie Roseman. A lot of people had him trading up to get Quinyon Mitchell or one of the top cornerbacks. I did my mock draft. I had the Eagles trading up to 12 to get Quinyon Mitchell. They sit back at 22 and still get who I think is the top cornerback on the board. I know a lot of people like Tyrion Arnold, but I really like Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. And for them to sit back and get him, I think that's excellent. Is there KC with Xavier Worthy going up and getting him when the Bills needed it? But I don't want to talk about the Bills too much because I'm going to talk about them at the end of the show. But any other ones that stand out to you here before we cap off the winners?
I'm going to go easy path here. I'm going to talk about the Washington Commanders for just a second. Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. My everydayers Locked On Commanders already know that I've been connecting this team to Jaden Daniels for a while now, to the point where I even told my everydayers, listen, I would love to just make up an episode and say, oh, you know what? It could be Drake May because of these reasons, but that would be disrespectful to you because I'm lying to you, because from about the end of March, I just did not see how it was going to be anybody but Jaden Daniels. I've been steadfast in that. And it turns out that, it's always good to know that you're on the same wavelength as the team that you're covering.
Exactly.
And when you talk to Adam Peters, the general manager, after night one was over, all the reasons that you look at, this team wants to be explosive. They want to be aggressive. They want big plays. And more than anything else, the quarterback, they said they wanted a game changer. And Jaden Daniels was that guy. In fact, Tyler, he's actually my number one quarterback in this draft. I know a lot of people got Caleb Williams up there. As far as I'm concerned, the Commanders got the number one quarterback in the draft. So for me, yes, I cover them. Doesn't mean I'm a homer. Didn't grow up a Washington fan, but I do have them as winners on this list.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But we got to talk about some losers, because there are definitely some losers to get into. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do,
today's episode of Locked On NFL, post first round of the NFL draft, brought to you by Monopoly Go. And we've all been there. Falcons fans, You were there tonight, either as a player or a fan watching the NFL draft. It's halftime or it's draft day, and you're not feeling too good about what's going on. Maybe the scoreboard's not going your way. Maybe your team is worried too much about the future and not about winning a very winnable division in the NFC South. No offense, Saints, Panthers, and Bucks. You're feeling low. You're not sure what you can do to get yourself and your team right back on the right track. So you gotta lift your head up. You gotta talk to yourself a little. Maybe go to the mirror, pat yourself on the shoulder, say, you know what, man, it is time. We gotta take action. We gotta pull off some bank heists. You got to go take as much of your friends' money as you possibly can, because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of this rut. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends and get the most riches and build the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much that you can do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make pretend that your friends' landmarks are the Atlanta Falcons decision makers and just throw a wrecking ball all over them and make some progress there. Charge your other players for rent on your iconic properties, just like you do in the original game. You can even work with those friends to crack open community chests in tournaments and get extra rewards and climb up those leaderboards. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play.
All right, football fans, let's cap off this first round recap edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Before we do, again, thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first to listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel. Great opinions, great analysis, all the local experts from Locked On chipping in, coverage for every league from all of our national shows. Be a part of history with Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on the Amazon Fire Channels app. David, I'm going to kick us off here. There's a famous meme out there, a famous GIF. I thrive off negativity. Anything negative, I'm about it. And I am a personification of that in sports media. I'm so excited to get in my losers. And I just really, really hate the pick of Bo Nix at 12 for the Denver Broncos. I know that they needed a quarterback, but to me, that is desperation. Look, I'm not very high on the Michael Penix pick. I think he was a first rounder, but a late first rounder. I look at Bo Nix. I think that's a first rounder, maybe, but a late first rounder. I think those guys are second round talents at the end of the day, personally. And to take Bo Nix at 12 out of desperation after trading for Zach Wilson and having Jared Stidham, like, I just do not see Bo Nix as a guy who is going to make a difference for the Denver Broncos. I don't think this changes anything for the Denver Broncos. I just think that that's a bit of a reach when there are good players on the board. And I'll just throw this in there too, not trying to be rude, but I think Drake May is the second best quarterback. And I know that Jaden Daniels is a little bit polished. I think we could look back at this and Drake May ends up as the best quarterback out of him if he figures out that footwork. So I think it's a dangerous game to take Jaden Daniels at number 2, just because I think Drake May has better arm talent. You know, Jaden Daniels is the better player right now, but I think it could be a Josh Allen situation where 5 years from now, Drake May puts it all together and is the better player. So I wouldn't call the Commanders a loser, but I'm just watching that one, you know, and wondering how that all works out. Who's the right quarterbacks? I don't know. But the big one that stands out to me that I have to harp on first is Denver and Bo Nix. I have been anti-Denver Broncos since they traded for Russell Wilson. I hated that trade in our Locked On reaction. I did not like the trade for Sean Payton. I don't think that changes things for the Broncos. And to get a quarterback that I don't really think changes anything either at number 12, just a super dangerous game to play for the Broncos. I don't like the move.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. Like, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos was on my list as well of potential losers. And, you know, but the Denver Broncos, Wig and I did an episode where we said, you know, which team do you not want to be in the shoes of this NFL draft, even in the first round? And the Broncos were one of those. Like, I look down the list. I'm like, there's really not a pick there that the Broncos make where I go, oh, okay, maybe they're onto something. But I really feel bad for Bo Nix, because I don't think Sean Payton's going to have any patience with this young quarterback. And if he doesn't deliver pretty quickly, you know, especially after they just shipped off Jerry Jeudy, like, if he doesn't deliver pretty quickly, he may find himself in the doghouse and looking for another team, a la Zach Wilson. But my biggest loser here from the first round has got to be 31 of the 32 NFL teams, because I know that only one team traded back with the Kansas City Chiefs and let them come up and get a record-setting speed receiver on the roster with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But even though only one team is the culprit, that one team just sunk all 31 of you. Like the Kansas City Chiefs trying to three-peat for the first time in NFL history. When you look at the first round, if I have to pick what scenario gives the Kansas City Chiefs the best odds of doing that, improving their chance of doing that this year, and then obviously hurts every other team's odds of upsetting them and keeping them from doing that, it's getting Xavier Worthy. And the Buffalo Bills are just like, here you go, Chiefs. We can't beat you anyway. So let's just help you make history, and at least maybe we'll make the DVD. I don't know, like somehow the Buffalo Bills get named in the DVD when it gets published. Like to me, I mean, again, you got to take care of your own team. You got to worry about what you're doing. I got it, but to allow a team like the Kansas City Chiefs to come up and get Xavier Worthy, just I don't know, man. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's funny that we talked about the Chiefs last year. Now, I was in November, I was saying everybody doubting the Chiefs right now. We're going to wake up and they're going to be in the conference championship in January. And all of you guys are going to be feeling dumb for doubting the Chiefs. Because as Alex Clancy, my co-host on Thursdays normally would say, it's Patrick Mahomes until it isn't. The one big gripe that we all had is they don't have any receivers. They don't, And now they add Hollywood Brown. They add Xavier Worthy. And Rashee Rice is probably going to take a suspension. But it's not like he's going to be gone all year. And it's not like the Chiefs can't survive without Rashee Rice for, a couple of weeks or a month and a half, whatever it happens to be. So I just love what they've done here. And that leads me into my next big loser. And you're right that 31 other teams lost right now, but I do got to harp on the Bills for doing this. They need wide receiver. They desperately needed a wide receiver after trading away Stephon Diggs, losing Gabe Davis. Like for them, it's just multifaceted. Not only did they pass on a wide receiver, they could, if you don't like Xavier Worthy, Xavier Legette went at 32. Adonai Mitchell still on the board. Keon Coleman still on the board, although I wouldn't take Keon Coleman that high, but just saying whoever they did like, not only did you not get that player and not get that wide receiver, but you let Kansas City come up and get theirs, who is your chief rival and your chief competition. Like you pointed out, the double aspect of the Bills missing on the talent that they need and then giving that talent to the Chiefs, just absolutely insane. If I had one other loser to add in, I do not understand Ricky Pearsall at 31 for San Francisco. I know that they're probably going to trade, and I love Pretty Ricky. Like I have been shouting from a mountaintop to take Ricky Pearsall at number 38. But taking him number 31 over some of the other wide receivers that are on the board, I know they're probably going to ship out Brandon Ayuk, maybe even to your Washington Commanders. That
let's go.
Jaden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk were on a live stream together earlier tonight, so that might be happening, and that would make a lot of sense. But for San Francisco it feels like a panic move to me. It feels like, hey, we got to add somebody. I like Pearsall again. Great athlete, great route runner. Tough catcher. He makes some incredibly tough catches over the middle, but I don't know that he's worthy of a first-round pick when some of these other wide receivers with higher potential are on the board. So I hate doubting Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and what they've done in San Francisco, but I was just very, very surprised. I thought Ricky Pearsall could be more in the 40s, maybe even 50s, I guess maybe late 30s, but I was just very surprised that they took that plunge that early.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I thought that was going to be Cooper DeJean, and actually, for a moment, Albert Breer tweeted out that it was Cooper DeJean, and that's who I thought it was going to be
tonight, where certain insiders were tweeting things, and they were not right about those picks. So, got to be careful out there.
Exactly. That's what I thought the pick was going to be. But I'll tell you what, man, it's an Arizona State weekend because Jaden Daniels, Arizona State to LSU to the NFL to the team that I cover. Brandon Ayuk is an Arizona State product, and potentially, like you mentioned, could potentially get traded here to DC. Ricky Pearsall for Florida. He was an Arizona State guy. I'm an Arizona State guy. I'm not going to show you because I have to take this off, but I've got an Arizona State T-shirt on under this. I was wearing it for a little bit. I
believe you. It's a family program, David. So I'm with you there.
Let's bring some Sun Devil love out here. So I love all the first round Sun Devil talk that we can get here. But yeah, man, I'm with you there. And actually, that's my final loser of this whole thing is a little bit of Brandon Ayuk. Not really, but basically, if he was holding out hope, because there's a thought process here that he doesn't really want out, he just wants paid. If that was the ultimate goal, behind the scenes, that those odds just took a massive hit with this draft pick. Even if we don't like the pick itself, that pick is squarely targeted on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
So in that light, potentially Brandon Ayuk a loser. Now, at the end of the day, if he gets traded to somebody else, man's getting paid. So I mean, don't cry for him. You know what I mean? But if his goal was to stay in San Francisco and get paid, that's where he's going to lose out in this deal.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right. So much more fireworks to come this weekend in the draft. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. Of course, round one was great. 6 quarterbacks, some trades, 14 straight offensive players, winners, losers. This is a full recap of day one of the NFL draft. Make sure you stick with us here on Locked On NFL for more reaction to the draft. Check out Locked On Sports today for 24/7 streaming coverage of everything you need to know around the sports world. David, it's been a pleasure doing the show with you guys. As a reminder, Locked On NFL, it's your team every day. Get subscribed, stay subscribed. Year-round NFL content, always for free. But that is going to do it for me, Tyler Rowland, local expert from Locked On Titans, here with David Harrison, local expert from Locked On Chargers, Locked On Commanders. Sorry about that, David. It is about 1 a.m. our time here. So we're putting in the work for you guys. But enjoy the rest of the draft weekend. And as I tell you guys all the time, stay safe out there.